the values that you carry today, the values that you've been taught by the people around you, do not have to be your permanent values. You can keep the ones you like, you can discard the ones you don't, and you can build new ones. And people feel trapped by culture, by race, by religion, that they're forced to carry these values, and that's just not the case.
Yeah.
What's up, boys? How's it going?
What's going on? How you feeling?
Feeling good, man.
Yeah.
The holidays, got 2 weeks of family time in a little bit.
Yes, sir.
I gotta come in Monday and Friday. That's okay though.
Yikes.
23rd, 27th. Year-end planning, budgeting, a couple client meetings that I just couldn't feel right pushing to January 9th.
I hear that.
But it should be cool. Alvaro's coming in on Monday.
Nice.
Junior's gonna
helps.
stop in on Monday. We're gonna get some stuff done.
It's nice.
Oh, that's good.
Little onboarding session.
Year-end planning. Yeah, a little bit to talk about the transition, what's going on in his life, and then a little bit of onboarding.
Awesome.
Just onboarding at a good time.
Yeah.
Good things happening in the
Yeah.
company.
Going to 2025. Wow, it's amazing. Started this journey a while ago. I think it's been with you guys definitely over 10 years.
Yep. I was just looking over all the data. So, company started in 2005, officially May 2005, which means next year we're gonna have our 20-year anniversary. You guys thought about celebrating yet?
I didn't even put two and two together, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I thought about
Next
it.
summer. Might be a
Wow.
barbecue. We'll see. So,
That's awesome.
20-year anniversary. I was just looking at tax data back to 2011. I kind of needed to know where I should start, and I didn't want to go all the way back to 2005. Plus, things were pretty flat from 2005 to 2010. It was
Yeah.
just like medial increases. And 2011, selfishly, is when I graduated from high school. So I just picked that number. And we were about 300,000 in revenue at the time, which is interesting considering how many people were involved in the organization.
Yeah.
So you were definitely here, 2011.
No, not 2011, no.
Oh, okay. So Alex was here, Fahadla was here,
Louis,
Rachel.
Annie, and Mom were seasonals.
Yep. So there was like 3 full-time, 3
full-time,
seasonal,
yeah.
6 people, 300K. Okay, not bad. And then I saw the numbers climb very small, like 300 to 340 or something like that, then 340 to like 400 or something like that. And it's obviously a little bit more production per person. You jumped in 2014?
14.
Yeah, I saw that year climb, 2013 to 14. Camilo certainly put it on the screen for us. That year had a nice little jump. You can tell because you hired a new sales producer.
Correct.
It's interesting. I was just meeting with a client this morning, and they kind of been up and down, a little bit flat throughout the last 3 years. So like good 2021, okay 2022, not okay 2023, decent 2024, better from last year. But if you look at it across the board, it's a pretty flat graph. But their hiring has doubled from last year to this year. Revenue increased like 20%,
Yeah.
but after a decrease. So it's like a break-even point.
Yeah.
And he hired, it looks to be like at least 2 or 3 people full-time. They reached out because they were feeling frustration and they wanted to get a sense of what was going on at the company, which is fair. Why not ask the people who are doing your books? And next week we're gonna have a conversation, and I really think it's only gonna take 2 hours. Today's our conversation and next week's our conversation to figure out what's going on. It's not too complicated in a service business. And that's the interesting thing, I guess, for this podcast. The only people I've talked to are service-based businesses thus far.
Yep.
So I'm definitely gonna have to sprinkle in a couple product businesses because those are entirely different businesses.
For sure.
Yeah.
What do you think the secret is to growing a service-based business? If there's a secret.
From what I experienced is when you find somebody that it's really valuable to the business, you invest, double down on that person. I think it first started with you, seeing that, like, you know, even though you being young, but being very interested in business and learning. It was kind of like you were the first person where I was like, yeah, I want to double down on Rob.
I'll take a step back because technically you were the first person that Fajardo doubled
Correct.
down on.
Yeah.
And then you guys recruited other family members, Zoraida, Rachel, Dario,
Yeah, so
Toby.
interesting about that, before me, it was Tia Zoraida,
Yes, correct.
Yeah, true.
you know? And I think where Fajardo saw with me that him and Zoraida didn't have was the sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when he saw that he's like, all right, I want you to be a part of this.
He saw an eye.
Yeah, he saw that. Right. Which we'll talk about that.
We just did the disc training, the personality training. So both Alex and Toby are influencers.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Very good at sales. Yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on. For service-based businesses, you need salespeople. The only people you need in the beginning, and the beginning is like $500,000, you need salespeople. Anything besides that is risky in nature because it's very hard to connect their input to your company output.
Correct. And once, you know, you get to the point where you need technical people,
Yep.
right? You need the Mikes and the Darius of the world.
Of course.
And we actually had, we dodged the bullet, you believe it or not, because we had that. Dario was that. And I think that was the first time that I felt I let something, I didn't take my reaction. Like I knew in my gut, we should invest in this person,
Yep.
be it equity or whatever it is.
Well, what do you think the risk was at the time in investing in, let's say, not use Dario as an example, but a more technical person that doesn't necessarily gravitate towards sales?
Me and Fajardo taking less money.
So that was the how. What was the why? Why invest in this technical person?
Because at that moment we were lacking that as far as that's why we were not really there to do complicated.
Yeah, you were kind of leaving a market completely unexplored.
Correct.
You couldn't service a market that you could probably build a demand around. Like they could find you,
Yeah.
but then when they found you, you couldn't service them. So you were leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
What do you think is the risk involved in bringing that person on?
That you just your profit that you would either take home or invest somewhere else. You just
Do you think that was the only risk?
At the moment, or I mean, I would say so. We was never talking about equity. I never really started talking about equity with nobody until you and I having conversations.
Yep. What do you think was the risk, Toby? What is the risk for a service-based business who's now about to hire their first non-salesperson? Maybe it's a service person, so it's kind of correlated with sales. What do you think the risk is?
For me, I think that if you're not equipped to have a person that does that kind of work, maybe they're not going to feel like there was a space for them, or maybe you're preemptively giving them something that they weren't supposed to get, like, or you know what I mean, like you're just jumping the gun sometimes.
Yep.
Because what if that just wasn't the time for you to step into maybe complicated taxes or business returns or what have you? Because you know he was learning things, and maybe he just wasn't that person either. Like he also, when he stepped away and did his own move, he wasn't that person either. He still had time to grow. So, you know, there's some risk there where you're bringing somebody in that might not have been ready for that just yet. Like you said, you didn't even have advisors that were maybe giving you advice as to like give folks equity or bring people in that way. So you might have just done like a salary dump or something like, I don't know, you know, it's just, there's something there that it might have been just wrong, like bad timing.
I think it was very young too in the business.
Yeah.
2 years old.
I think a lot of it has to do around accountability. It's very easy to hold salespeople accountable.
Okay.
Hey, what are your sales? And it's very easy to correlate their sales to production, but it's not so easy to do with anybody else, with an administrative person, with a customer service rep, with a technical expert. We don't even do a good job at tracking. Hey, how much of this sales did we have to get you involved in? Because without you, we couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So it becomes a little bit more complicated. I just had someone text me before we started this episode, like, hey, I know we're going to chat Monday, but what do you think? When is the right time to hire someone? Do you use projections, financial projections, or do you use actuals? right? So do we wait to first see that the company can afford to hire someone and then hire someone? Or do we think, okay, we're going to do this over the next 6 months, so we should hire someone now before we get there and then can't service our clients? That's a tricky question.
That is tricky. Yeah. And an answer to that, in your expertise, like, is it a combo? I'm thinking combo because if you can't, let's say you can't get, a loan to be able to cover that if you don't have the cash, then there's the answer. It's like, well, you can't even do it just yet. But it's weird. It's interesting.
Go ahead.
For me, it's pure investment. It's the same way that we invest in any asset. When we buy it's just easier.
Well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
When do you buy a printer?
When you need it.
So when do you need a person? When do you need a printer? How do you know you need a printer? The moment you have to start printing things?
Yeah.
So how do you need a person? It's a staff is very interesting because it's a capacity problem. So can you go without that printer one more week? No, not if you need to print. Can you go without that person one more week? Well, yeah, I could just do it. I can work 3 hours longer if you're capable of that technical skill that person's going to bring to the table. You might not do it the best, but you can still get it done.
Yeah.
So I disagree. Maybe when you say asset, you're thinking about a financial investment.
Yeah.
Like when do you buy the next rental property?
Right.
As soon as humanly possible. That's under the expectation that rental property is going to produce. What if you buy it and then the tenants are shit?
Yeah. Then
that's the risk.
That's the risk.
Yep. Much easier to let go of a person though than a rental property.
100%.
So it's like, yeah, you kind of should go in quick because you can kind of get out quick. The only problem is, of course, that goes against a lot of people's values. Nobody wants to hire somebody understanding that they might fire them in 3 months.
Yeah.
Especially in this market where it's becoming difficult to find a job.
Yeah. I mean, you can, like Toby said, you can find a way maybe to work around it where it's not all financially risky for the business.
Yeah.
That's how we did with Toby.
Yep. Get creative with compensation design.
Yeah.
Bring them in slowly. Maybe this is a side hustle for now.
Maybe hit, like even with Toby, the commission style, right? Like, hey, if business goes up, you keep a job.
Easy to do with salespeople.
Right.
Hard to do with anybody else.
Yeah.
Very true.
That's very true.
My answer to him, while I agree with Toby, like all good financial advice, the answer is always it depends. It's always a hybrid. But I like actuals more than projections. It depends on the business. If your business is easily projected, if you own a gym and we can see something like memberships and we have 24 months of data on what that membership count has looked like, and if over the last 6 months the data has been consistently up, say you're gaining 10% new members a month, then okay, we can go on projections. Because it feels less risky. It's risk-adjusted projection. Most people's projections for their company, especially the first couple of years in business, it's really just dreams.
Yeah.
It's really just hopes. This should close. I have 3 clients in my pipeline. 2 of them should close. Nobody that has 3 clients in their pipeline should expect any of them to close. Because 3 clients is not nearly enough. So to me, I think it goes back to that philosophy of say yes to the things that you're not ready for. So if you have that client that you don't think you can service, hire the client, then hire the person. Don't hire the person, and then God forbid that client says no. Now you have this person not doing anything.
Yeah.
So just overextend. That's the entrepreneurial issue. You have to go, capacity planning for an entrepreneur is not be at 100% all the time. You have to go to 150 and then buy yourself back down to 80. And then you got to go to 150 again, and then you got to hire someone to get you back down to 80. Unlike most people who struggle to get to 50 or 80% at their job.
Yeah. I've always, and even when I'm hiring a person, or when I was hiring a person that I know really well with their potential, to Rob's point, if they couldn't, even though that's where I want to go to with that person, with maybe a different type of client that we don't have yet, if you couldn't service the ones we have now or work with that or do something right now that's valuable to the business, then I wouldn't hire that.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be super critical in those early hire days. And, I see clients hire really smart people who are bringing a lot of value, who are making the clients feel good, but they're not really moving the needle. It's like, okay, so you're here and now costs are up because obviously you're here. And then you have a lot of great ideas and you want to implement those ideas, so costs are up even more because now we got to go buy the software, or we got to get this package, or we got to get this tool. And then the revenue's kind of flat. And the difficult thing is you can't expect a turnaround in a month or 3 months. So sometimes it takes a year from that person, especially if they're not a salesperson, to come in and implement new sales. Or, I have an example of a client who hired a product person. So they're developing new products that the business is selling. But year one of a new product, first building a minimum viable product, it's going to take you 6 months. And then once you have it, selling it, it's going to take you another 3 months. And then once you sold your first one, you need time
to catch up to the investment that you already.
Yeah. What if that MVP didn't work the first 6 months?
Right.
Now you
Now
have
you
to
gotta
go
build
back and build. It's tough.
And that's the risky part.
Yeah. This is what differs from, this podcast is definitely not geared towards a VC-backed company, venture capital backed or private equity backed, because it's not like, here's a $500,000 check, walk me through the business plan, how are you going to spend it, who are you going to hire, okay, I'm going to give you a 12-month deadline for an MVP, if you don't have it by then, the $375,000 you haven't used it yet, I'm taking back. So structured. This is for bootstrap entrepreneurs. It's like, you have your business that is your sole source of income, that holds all of your life savings. You got to approach this way differently. You can't afford to take that level of risk because you're not playing with other people's money.
Yeah. It's that saying that we in our culture is always friendo y comiendo, frying while you're eating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cooking while you're eating.
Cooking while you're eating. That's entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Now, so back to JBS. So 2005 to 2011, you had a good business. You guys were essentially eating. You guys were solopreneurs, like I like to call it.
Yep.
Meaning you eat what you kill. Instead of getting a job, it's much better to just do something for myself. The good news is statistics show that the median income of a solopreneur is higher than that of an employee.
Yeah.
So those people taking that leap, which is about 80% of the 30 million businesses in the US are solopreneurs. So those 24 million people or so, good on them, because they're earning more likely doing that than they could in a job. A lot of them, though, I worry about, because I know for a fact a lot of them driving Uber or doing handyman work aren't even meeting minimum wage when you run the numbers.
Yeah. And then even though technically we were, self-employed, we were, whatever if something happened to one of us, there's no business, right? One thing that made us feel so like freedom-wise, I guess, is work hard for 3 months, work really little for the next, 8. And for me, that was like, this is crazy. Yeah. I mean, think about it. When you see the numbers, 300, 400,000 in 3 months.
Yeah.
Produce that, and then I just manage that money to pay one full-time employee. The seasonals go by, and then the 2 owners get to come and go as they please.
Yeah, it's a nice little business model.
One of my favorite lines is when Alex asked his stepfather, Fajardo, one of the founders, legally?
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me I can make a year's salary in 3 months? Obviously, the first couple of years really wasn't like that. That was like the sales to bring him in. You had to start working to get to that point. But it's like, yeah, of course, sign me up. Why not? This makes total sense. This is amazing.
I mean, if you look at H&R Block's market cap, and at that time, I would have related you guys to a franchisee of an H&R Block.
Mm-hmm.
They're, last I checked, like maybe 3-4 billion market cap, meaning that's how much they're worth in the public market. All they do is go around initially opening, now just acquiring small tax practices that have 1,000 to 5,000 tax returns. 80-90% of them super simple, but not simple enough, or the people didn't feel confidence enough to do it themselves via TurboTax or something like that. So they walked into an H&R Block, reputable firm. They have legal behind them. They have tax behind them. So even if the person in that office wasn't a technical expert, they could always reach out to somebody. And Fahad, though, he had 14 years experience before he launched JBS. He was already a solopreneur tax practitioner for a decade and a half in New York. So you guys looked like that, and for a while we entertained a couple offers from H&R Block.
Correct.
Back in the day. So the exact kind of client that they were looking for. I noticed things started to change when you got more serious about the kind of salespeople you hired.
Yep.
So initially you were, and even with Toby, like a lot of family businesses, you're just hiring family and friends.
Yeah.
Hey, are you crazy enough to do this?
Yeah.
I was, and look where it got me. Like, that's the pitch.
Yep.
I was looking over the data, and in 2015, I graduated from college. 2011, I graduated from high school. So I started looking at that, pretty normal. The big uptick from my high school to my college was Toby coming in as a salesperson. It increased something like 80 to 100,000 in sales that year. And then when I graduated from college, we started doing some financial planning for you, personally, Alex. And two of the first things we did was like get life insurance policies on you and your wife, open up a retirement account, a SEP IRA, and started contributing a lot to that to reduce your tax liability, to start saving for retirement. Debt management planning.
Yep.
Right? Like knocking out those credit cards that we all had in our 20s that we shouldn't have done. And then really started thinking about asset acquisition.
Yep.
So buying your first house. So it was like that. It was like taking care of credit cards, saving for retirement, ensuring that our family's going to be okay if we're incapacitated or dead, and then major purchase planning.
Correct.
The typical first 3 to 5 years of financial planning. We had a great year one.
Yep.
A lot of the debt knocked out, the insurance in place, the retirement plan in place. When did you buy your house?
2016.
Oh, awesome. So the following year.
Yeah, following year.
Yep. And then you buy a house. And you want to tell everybody the
Yeah.
mortgage story?
Yeah. So, at that time I had a couple cars. I had a 550 Mercedes, and that was the company's car.
Nobody should say I had a couple cars.
Audi Q7, they were both brand new. And, when I went to get the loan, I come back out, it's at that time, the mortgage was going to be $2,300, I believe it was, $2,100, something like that. And I think 21, 22. And before I closed on the loan, before I signed the mortgage, Rob tells me, as obvious as my financial advisor.
You reached out to me.
Yeah, I reached out to Rob. Yeah, so when I'm telling, like, obviously every time I would do something that had to do with more than $5,000, I always talk to Rob about it. So Rob said, ask Gustavo. Shout out to Gustavo, who was the one that closed that on me.
Yeah.
He said, can you ask Gustavo to check a 15-year mortgage? And when I did, Gustavo ran this. Of course, he ran the numbers. It was a point less in percentage.
Yeah, like
2.9 instead of 3.9.
In 2016. That's
2016.
Huge. Sub
Yeah.
3.
And then the payments were $3,000, so $700 a month.
Yep.
So I remember thinking to myself, I'm a spender. I like to drive nice things. I like the luxury life. That's $700 a month. I know I can do it, but I don't want to be really that tight. I want to have to.
That was a car payment.
Yeah, that was one of the car
It was
payments.
like $850.
Yeah.
It was a little more than $700.
So when I brought that up to you, that concern, you gave me a very great confidence. Kind of like, and that's great to even say that to you. The confidence with John was saying, the podcast. You gave me great confidence because we said, you've been working together for a year, so I know your finances, and I know I wouldn't tell you something you can't do. Just sign it. Do the 3,000. Do the 15 years, 3,000, and if it doesn't work out and you find yourself struggling, we'll refinance it and do the 30 year.
Do you know where all my confidence came from on telling you I know you can do the 3,000? Because I know the bank wouldn't put it in front of you if they didn't think you could do it. The bank has to see a debt service coverage. So if they put the 3,000 in front of you and said you could do it, that means that their underwriter already checked off the fact that you could actually afford this mortgage.
Yeah.
And aside from being your financial advisor, he's your brother who's seen you spend the things you would spend on when you have the luxury thing. So it's like, the means are there.
And to be honest, man, you know what it is? Life doesn't change when you make those decisions for the better. At that time, The house was 346. I believe we borrowed 327. Today, what is it? It's about to be 2025, so it's about to be 9 years. And I think we owe like 170, 160.
Yeah, that's wild. So this is what really changed. And by the way, for those listening that are going to look at this and say, what a horrible investment decision, because he could go earn a lot more in the stock market than 3.4 or 2.9%. You know, everybody will think, and logic tells you, get the 30-year mortgage, invest the difference, you'll be better off. The problem with that, number one, is I know Alex. So this is the problem with generic financial advice. This is a big issue that I have online, and this is one of the reasons I'm not online until now. Generic advice doesn't work for anybody. And it's a very dangerous thing. When you're getting FINRA registered and you're becoming a financial advisor, you learn over and over again to be very careful with your words and to not give advice to someone you don't know. Because you might say something and they might hear something and then they might do something. It won't work out and they'll blame you for it. You would not have invested the difference. I know that for a fact. Even if I set up the structure so that the investment came out on the same day, you would have found a reason 3 years in to turn that off.
Yep.
But going through the pain of refinancing a mortgage, the pain of keeping that $3,000 mortgage was much less.
Right.
So in finance, people think money, and this is something that actually keeps people very poor and broke, is they think money is math, and then they think, I'm not good at math, so I'm not good at money. There's that screwed up logic of money is basically a mathematic, and I was never good at that in school, so I just don't know how to do it. And it's like, no, money is behavior, it's psychology, it's habits. It's like trick yourself to do things that are in your own best interest, like waking up early or exercising. Those things aren't complicated, you don't need an education for it. But you need to have frameworks in place where you're convincing yourself, man, if I just sacrifice a little bit now, $900 a month extra, I'll cut off 15 years of my mortgage. How many years of your mortgage you have left?
So what's that, 2031? So what's that,
that's
7?
16.
Yeah, about 6-7 years.
Oh, wow. Yep. So you're going to have a mortgage paid off by your what birthday?
So I'm 45.
45. No mortgage.
Pretty
Without accelerating payments.
Correct.
Right? Because a lot of people who have no mortgage at 45, they were like
13.
going to the dollar store to buy food so they could put extra payments to the mortgage.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed in your life. You're still driving some nice cars.
Yeah. Less and less every year, thank God.
Yeah. Good.
But yeah, and you know what's one of the things that taught me, one that has shown me is, like you said, money is not, to be good with money, it's not about how smart you are, it's the way your habits that you control with it, right? I'm an emotional person, so money sometimes I control it with emotion, where my brother's more logic. He says, yo, if you do this, this happens. So you have to learn yourself how to do it. The way he's gonna deal with money is way different than the way I do it. So I've learned how to hide money from myself and force myself because of that decision. Now I have a lot of bills that go directly to my future family, to me.
Yep.
And that's it. So it's like I find myself a lot of times I don't have a vacation, so I have to put it on a credit card. But I really can stop saving money and use that. And that would be more logical. Maybe save some money on interest, even though I know how to play the interest game. But if I stop that, then that habit is going to go away, and I'm never going to go. It'll be hard to go back to it. It's like
it would be
the gym.
very hard to stop it at this point.
Correct.
You've been doing it so long.
Yeah. So it's super hard to stop it. I'd rather find another way to find the whatever I need.
Yeah, back to math. You rather get into debt than touch your investments. That kind of makes no sense either.
Correct.
The debt is way higher interest.
Yeah.
But it's about building this muscle and not letting it go. And it's okay to move backwards sometimes. That's normal. To your point, we're very different. That's why our financial plans look different. That's why you and I should not be getting generic financial advice.
Correct.
That's why nobody should be getting generic financial advice.
Yeah.
But back to the story, back to the JBS story. We keep going off. So a year after you just got your house, we built your financial plan, you came up to me and you said, hey, do you think you could do some of this financial planning stuff for our business, set up for me?
Yes. And
2016.
Yeah, 26. And I'll tell you, it wasn't only for what you did for me, but remember, at that year when you first took me as your first client, I trusted you a lot with a lot of clients I had.
Sure. Yeah, you were referring me a lot of clients, and I was working with them.
And then having seen those clients and seeing their progression, including with mine, and how we all understood a little bit more of this game of the finance world, was like, we need to do this with the businesses. I was thinking our business first, JBS, but I was thinking about long term, like this can be a great relationship. And I knew it wasn't gonna happen fast, but I also realized that Fajardo and I were so emotional with stuff, and we made a couple of bad investments together and a couple of stuff, and I felt I wanted somebody to run the money who was not part of the team, or not own ownership.
Got it.
You get what I mean?
Yeah, you wanted an independent assessment.
Yes, because we were too
Yeah, that makes sense. You were too close.
right?
That makes sense. I think a lot of people who hire accountants or CFOs in their companies, it's the same thing. They want like that second set of eyes, that like fact check, that give me the confidence to know the decisions I'm making are going to work out. Because that's what CEOs do. They bulldoze. You know, most of them is like they know what they want to get done. Sometimes they don't necessarily know how it's going to get done. So that's what those number twos, number threes, chief operating officers, financial officers end up being for them.
Correct.
The importance too of saying something like, I need some other eyes, although some people were viewing JBS at the time as like an accounting firm, which we were not.
Yeah.
Right? So if we needed help kind of taking a step back and looking at the macro, like looking at those numbers from a bird's eye view and not looking at it with a magnifying glass or with emotions, that was super helpful.
Yeah. Because, you know, for people who won't know this, JBS, you know, Jacqueline Business Services was our original name. We were just preparing taxes.
Yeah. Yeah, we weren't providing any sort of accounting services.
Financial stuff, you know.
Yeah. It was just if you had your financials in order, as a person, that's easy. If you had your W-2s, your 1099s, your expenses, we put together the return. If you were a company and you had your financial statements, we put together the return. But we weren't creating financial statements. We weren't assisting in that process at the time. So I remember thinking that and you telling me that and me saying, in my head, of course, I have no idea how to provide financial advice to a company. I just finished learning how to provide financial advice to me and to you. But I was in a learning phase. And so, like I mentioned, entrepreneurs need to do. I said yes, and then I went and figured it out. And you start small. What I ended up starting with was a pricing exercise. Mm-hmm. So it's like, so how do you price? And there wasn't really a clear answer.
No,
it was like, well, we start at $100.
If it's a house,
if it's a house, it's $300, and we just developed a simple method that we're still using today to say, well, we have, and every business has something like this. They have these technical points that you can point to. For us, it was tax forms. So tax form 1040, tax form W-2, tax form K-1, and our software even has a pricing sheet where you can set a price per form. And there's 80 of these forms, like commonly used. There's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
So we just went down the gamut and we priced out each form and then we put it to the test. Okay, great. So now we have a mom come in with 2 kids who had 3 jobs over the course of last year. Put it through the price exercise, see how much it comes out. Oh, that's too high. Drop the price on W-2s because that's too high. As I was saying to a client earlier, pricing is not a science, is an art, but it requires some sort of scientific solution. So our scientific solution was, well, we'll set up our price modeling based on tax forms.
Yep.
The art was then, okay, how does it feel? Who would it resonate with? If we brought a client in from last year, this year, how much would their price change? And how can we explain that? Is value changing at all? And so you kind of take this artistic, scientific approach, going back and forth till it feels right. And unfortunately, that's what pricing is. Like, yeah, you do some competitive analysis, you do some modeling to where your prices were before, but really the right price is when a couple of people are saying no to the service. You know you're underpriced when no one's saying no to the service. You know you're overpriced when everyone's saying no. And I don't have the exact science down yet. I'm sure with more years of data, I'll get closer. But really, it's just me trying to make sense of the madness.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we can invent whatever kind of data that we want to see. I think that for the small business owners and even for big businesses, there's just an art to pricing. And the art is, well, how much can you get away with while providing a significant amount of value? And if you find a way to connect those two things, price and value, then you'll win. For people struggling with price, it's because you haven't made that connection.
Yeah.
Would you say that the difference between the science and the art might be different depending on the type of industry? Let's say service versus product and blah, blah, blah.
It could be the same industry and different types of people running it. It varies one-on-one, independently. So there are some tax firms. So we still have our foreign price.
Yep.
And I think our 1040 is still at like 100 or $125, even 15 years later. There are some tax firms that just say, our minimum price for a 1040 is $1,500. We know our value. We know the kind of people we want to work with. That's our price. You don't want to pay that price? That's great, because we don't really want to work with you. Right? So it depends firm to firm, company to company. It really relies on your values, the kind of people that you want to service, why you want to service those people, how you think you're servicing them to begin with, like what value you're providing them, and then set the price, see what happens.
And I feel like we got some pushback, but not as much as I first was thinking about. I remember Rob again giving me the confidence, like, bro, this is right. This is like, look, and then comparing to everybody else, we were always underpriced. We still are underpriced, in my opinion. But what happened was, where I think clients didn't really complain too much, is because we had years of giving that value, the value of off-season being there, giving them copies, picking up calls all the time, doing things that
being reliable. That's the value. So that's an example of value, right? Reliability.
That was it.
That's one that's missing a lot in your industry too, in our industry.
And that's what and that's kind of the same thing that Rob's been teaching the young people, and even all of us, is first give your value, then put your price.
Yeah, I learned that from Gary Vee. Gary Vaynerchuk. Jab, jab, right hook. Right? It's like deliver the right way to sell in his philosophy, in my philosophy. I love how he put it together. Is like deliver value, deliver value, deliver value, deliver value, ask for value in exchange. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the concept. And people like working with people like that. And you like working. I'm sure you have some ideas that come up. I'm sure you bought a car from a few people in your life. I'm sure there was one person you bought a car from who you really enjoyed buying a car from.
Correct.
And I'm sure the other people was a really shitty experience.
Yeah.
Same process.
And to that point is one of the reasons why I was so eager to partner up with the both of you and be with that, because you guys both, in different ways, delivered value to the company before getting to be partner. And I remember Toby, it was just, I remember Toby in the beginning was underpaid. I know you wasn't even being paid. Thanks for the internship at those times. But having people really care and do and put up so much value,
Yep.
It got to the point where it was like, you never had to ask me. I was just like, yo, this feels right.
And when you're working with good people, that's what happens. And by the way, that's how everybody makes partner. If you look at larger firms, they make it a little bit more difficult for you. Like PwC, to my knowledge, I have a lot of friends who work there. I know some people who just made partner there. You just have to dedicate like 20 years of your life to them. If you dedicate 20 years of your life to them and to your employment, and you make sure to shine above all, they will name you partner. That's what happens. I have a mentor who's a partner at Bain Capital. You shine and you outwork people. They're looking for that talent. These firms do not work without new partners coming in. It's a revolving door. For partners to retire, partners need to come in. So a bunch of people are out there thinking about making you a partner. People just lack patience It is safe to say that there's a bunch of people out there who will ask you to work for 30 years and never make you partner. Those people are out there too. There are schools of thought. I don't necessarily think you have to be an equity partner to be treated like a partner. I think there's employers out there who will compensate you as if you were a partner even though you're not. And to me, that's kind of the same thing as being partner. But yeah, there's a lot of philosophies around value deliverance and what you do to people that over-deliver. And I think that's all relationships. Like what we do to our romantic relationships when there's someone over-delivering value is we decide, man, I want to spend the rest of my life with that person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think speaking to that transition, right, since we were talking about that, when you stepped in and you were learning yourself on how things work, pricing models, staffing models, and then that idea sparked where it's like, well, you have to try to get some equity to folks. First of all, let's pay people up to where they deserve, and others that don't deserve some things need to have a conversation about lowering it or telling them that you need to kind of up your game to match it.
Or like I like to say, offboarding.
Yeah,
Instead of firing, sometimes you got to offboard somebody.
That's it. For me, it's like, well, I was already acting this way. I don't understand what this means. First of all, I need to understand what that is and how that affects my life, and is there buy-in? How this works?
Are you talking about being a partner?
Being made partner. And there was some research to be done on my side. Again, thankfully, it's a family business. So I had the person that was doing a lot of the research around to tell me this is what it is, this is what it isn't, and kind of understand it a little more. We didn't have Betty ChatGPT back in the day, so it was a little harder to kind of understand and have like a quick answer. But I took a little bit of time to try to figure this out. Still didn't 100% understand what this meant. But I trusted, the same way I trusted to be from New York, living in Baltimore at the time, met my wife, moved back to New York and said, I need to take a leap of faith. And Alex said, no matter what, he got me. And I just hung on to that.
Yep.
At some point, there needs to be more.
Yep.
Not because I feel like I would have done something or left or whatever, but it's just the right thing to do. Alex didn't know any better, but he brought somebody on that said, these are the steps you need to take to make sure that this train continues. And you're the one that's saying you want to grow and you want other folks to kind of have the same things that you have, and this is the way to do it.
And that's it. That's how you keep people, is you help them grow.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all we're looking for, all of us.
Yeah.
Personally, professionally, financially, we just want growth. And that's just the nature of life, economics. It's like if economies don't keep growing, they start shrinking.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of economics.
Yeah.
If we don't keep growing, we start spiraling downward. That's just the nature of humans.
And this is the great part of data, and having conversation and having a CFO or somebody that looking behind, and then you can have conversations about these things. Because talking to Rob is a lot, and seeing where it's at was one of the reasons why I when I spoke to my partner about giving you a significant raise, it was because like that I was able to come and say, hey, look, I got an investment for you. Without telling him what the investment was, and I said, what was it you said, right? You saw that when Toby came in, the company 80, 100K.
Yep.
So I said, I got an investment for you. If you invest this much, you will make in 3 months 100K.
Yep.
And he's like, nah, that's too crazy. That rate of return is too crazy
Scam.
to do.
Scam likely.
Yeah.
So when he was like, yeah, let's do it. You put your half, I put my half, and in 3 months we'll have that there. And I said, here it is. This is Toby Garcia.
Yeah. His name is Toby. He's a new sales rep.
And let's keep him, and then we keep him all year round with this salary.
Yep.
Now we have two people,
Did he flinch at all? Or he was like,
he hit me with the smirk of the scam likely. Like, you scammed
got me,
even,
bro.
You know what's scary is if you would have told him about like this blue chip or even this pink chip, this pink sheet company or this cryptocurrency or Telex free, he would have said, oh yeah, let's put our money in that.
Yeah.
You're telling me it's going to triple in a few months? Let's do it. But you tell them, hey, let's invest it into a person.
It's
And
They
difficult.
say,
And to play devil's advocate, from his perspective, he said, I'm 50% owner of this thing. I'm older than Alex. Alex is thinking, and I'm not sure at that time how candid you were with like your thoughts on the future of the company or whatever, but he's like, I'm older, I'm not trying to really rock this thing, and I have I have, most of the year off. Like those things are the things that he's thinking about.
Yeah.
So I'll do it for something else. I'll put my discretionary money into something else so that could grow, but I don't want to rock this thing of ours.
Yeah, we being in different stages of our lives. And he was really clear with me on that. He said, "Look, son, you're trying to build something. I'm trying to get out."
Yeah.
So that was really tough.
When we're putting portfolios together, we're always looking at two sides of the spectrum: the growth planning and the income planning, and they're negatively correlated. So the more you want of one, you have to give up the other.
Yeah.
And this is like a life cycle of retirement planning, for example. When you're in your 30s and 40s, you're in accumulation. You want to invest in growth investments. You don't care if those investments pay you a monthly check. You don't care for guarantees. You just want growth. As you enter 50s, 60s, 70s, you're looking for the dividends.
Yeah.
You're looking for the interest. You start switching to bonds. And it's a very difficult thing to manage when you have two partners with different risk profiles.
Yeah, that was really tough for us. A lot of times I gave in. There were times when I was like, a lot of times my give in would have been more like, all right, so I'll put my part.
Yeah.
And that'll make people think like, wait, but if he's doing that, then it makes it feel like if the home run hits, it makes it feel like it was all him. So it's like, I'll put my part too,
Yeah. We can definitely influence each other's risk tolerance.
Yes.
For sure.
100%.
Yes. And amazingly, it did also help out for the business to grow. It helped him back to take a step back. Ironically, so he could because he was having back issues around that time.
So more revenue, less work.
Yes.
See there, so like we were talking about earlier with entrepreneurs needing to go to 150% and then buy their way back to 80%. So let's say capacity, let's assume the 150% was hours worked. So instead of working 40 hours, you're working 60. And the only way you're gonna buy yourself back down to 40 is by hiring somebody. So there's this constant, every time you hire in the beginning, you're working way too much and then you gotta hire someone to take some burden off. There hits a point eventually, it's a little bit different for the industry you're in, the business you're running, the margins you're running. But there hits a point eventually where you're hiring someone so you can come down to 70%, 50% and stay there, right? Some of the best business owners out there, from small business owners to big business owners, these days, they're working 10, 20 hours a week on their actual business. They're spending the rest of the time developing as a person, developing content, reading books, writing books, speaking.
Networking, right?
Their business is running.
Yeah.
They've already figured that out. They've hired enough people where now they have an executive over there at 150% thinking about how they hired, but they're off of that hamster wheel already.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, in my opinion, between being an entrepreneur and owning a business. If you stop working and the business stops working, you're an entrepreneur. If you stop working and the business continues, you own a business. You own an asset that is not dependent on you, that can continue to run, that can more easily be sold. That is a real financial investment on your balance sheet. The benefit, I think, to having partners, because it takes, some people believe it takes like 50 employees. The rule of thumb out there is it takes 50 employees to have a business. That's to the point where it doesn't really need you anymore. Most people are not going to reach 50 employees. 80% of business owners haven't reached one employee.
That's a crazy stat.
That's a scary stat. Yep, they're solopreneurs. And you know what's funny? That's going to increase in my opinion because we're moving to a gig economy where more people are just going to sell time blocks. We're all selling our time right now. But what we're selling is 40 hours a week, 2,000 hours a year for 50 years. I think more and more we're moving to an economy now where we're going to be selling 4 hours on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
And then we're going to sell someone else 8 hours on Thursdays. But only the Thursdays we want, not every Thursday. And that's what things like Uber and Airbnb are starting to show us. I think over the next 30 years, most work is going to look like that. Especially with AI automation technologies, most work. And I think it should be a freeing thing for humans, but a dangerous one. Just like every time we move away from any systematic thing, like religion, for example, that has held us together for so long.
Yeah.
Work holds us together, economies, societies. But back to
JBS.
Back to JBS.
2016.
I remember where we were price modeling, huge hit. Not a lot of people complained. The ones that did, we attempted to deliver value. Some walked away, a lot stayed. The cool thing, I think the reason why we were able to continue to grow into 16, 17, 18, 19 is people realized that we were reinvesting.
Yeah.
So our clients realized that with the increase in revenue, because they were paying a little bit more, that it wasn't really going to Alex's pocket, and he wasn't driving a better car or wearing a better watch, but the business was growing. They saw new faces every year as they came in. They saw improvements to the office every year. They saw new technologies. So they kind of, and I thought this was very interesting at the time, studying investments, they were kind of acting as an investor of the company. And I think more people need to think like that. Your clients are investors of your company, especially those that keep coming back. So offer a good return.
I think the important thing we learned, well, we spoke about it either in one of the classes or one of our monthly meetings, was stakeholders.
Yeah.
Like they're stakeholders. They want to see, they're buying into this success. They're buying in. This is a piece of the. Earlier today, what did you tell your client and his mom? Don't worry if I'm here or somebody else is here. This is your house.
Yeah.
And saying for years and meaning it, like actually saying that and understanding that this really is their home. They buy into that kind of stuff, and they really understood that they're part of the journey.
And it's genuine, right? And to Rob's point, I would tell that to clients. I'd be like, hey, you see Toby? Yeah, I'm here. I'm working hard to keep him here for the year round. You're seeing how every year you're getting people to pick up the calls. You see, I hired somebody just to pick up calls because I was getting so busy and I hated messing up your calls. And you're saying that, you're having these conversations, and the clients is like, yeah, man, I'm seeing it.
Yeah, and I think you guys, even before I was involved, have been running such a transparent company. You've been so transparent to your clients that it's paid off dramatically. Because we all go out and consume products every day, and we know where that money's going. Most of those products is like, most of it is not going to the workers, unfortunately. Most of it's going to the executives. Now, whatever doesn't go to the executives is going to the shareholders. And the biggest problem in today's society specifically, and we're seeing this with what's going on in the US and in media, we have no idea who the shareholders are. You realize that? When you hear, like I'm drinking a Diet Coke right now, when you hear about the shareholders of a Coca-Cola, who comes to mind?
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett. Yeah, he owns a lot of Coca-Cola. But he doesn't, Berkshire does. He owns a piece of Berkshire.
Yeah.
So through Berkshire owning Coca-Cola, Warren Buffett is a significant investor. But like once you dilute that down, Camilo will throw the graphics up on the screen. What percentage of Coca-Cola does Berkshire own? What percentage of Berkshire does Warren Buffett own? So you can kind of go down this path. Do you know what Warren Buffett's going to do with his wealth? $100+ billion that he owns?
I don't know.
Yeah, he's already opted to donate 95% to charity, 95% the day he does. Probably not the day, because that would be horrible estate plan, but he's going to donate it out. So it's like, whose hands do you want this money in? Because I hope he gets richer and richer and richer to the day he dies, and I hope he's thought about it long and hard, which I'm sure he has, which charitable donations, where, how often, over what period of time. While he's not giving them the cash, it's staying in investment, so it's still growing further. We need that.
Yeah.
We need more of that. And then, who else comes to mind? Coca-Cola. Who owns Coca-Cola?
I've always felt like he's the one that was the most, for whatever reason.
So this is the interesting thing about us, right? We go to one person, one owner. Most of the stock market, most public investments in the stock market is not owned by one person. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, who I know for a fact, owns like 10% or less of Amazon. And that's one of the most concentrated holdings in history. It's insane that he still owns 10%. That's crazy talk. And the way he's always saw it is, well, if I own 10% and I'm becoming really wealthy, that's because I'm making a lot of other people really wealthy too. The other 90%.
I'd say it's a publicly traded company. There's thousands of or maybe more of people, especially for the big.
Hundreds of thousands.
So it's
Hundreds of
like we
thousands.
can own Coca-Cola right now if you pull our phones out. You know what I'm
Yep,
saying?
and you know who owns the majority of those stocks? American Public and international investors. American Public, what do you mean? 401k plans. What do you think they're based on? Pension funds, though pensions hold more bonds. Some pension funds are allowed to go through some hedge funds that buy blue chip stocks. So, I'm not saying that we don't have a wealth problem, because we have one of the biggest wealth problems in modern history. There's way too few people who own way too much. Top 1% own 50% of the assets. I think that a clear way to solve that is to show people what the other side of investors look like, because all we're showing them are the CEOs that own the 50%. Let's show them the average person who lives in a nice 3-bedroom house, who has their mortgage paid off, who has $2 million in the 401k. Because they're owners too, and they're benefiting from it. And if you take these executives down and you take all their wealth down via the stock price, you're going to take this person's $2 million wealth down too.
And there's a lot of these,
There's a lot of those. Not enough,
but
but there's a lot.
it would affect a lot.
I think especially, if we want to talk about our communities and our upbringing, it's just not the sexy thing. It's not it's a time thing. Like, people want the home run. We talk to a lot of folks that want to be entrepreneurs, and they're thinking, no, because I want to control my time.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, you're gonna have control of it, but
Check.
you won't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right? And
Or maybe too much time.
and they wanna go ahead and make a shit ton of money, and it's like, well, that's not gonna all come in right away. Like, it takes time for that. And if you're thinking Bezos money,
Well,
that's
never.
what I mean. So we have to kind of educate and break it down to brass tacks. Like, this is how this works.
Yep.
And if you give it the time and if you do these things, it's been proven that you can get to this point.
And the time is like 30 years.
Right.
Right? That's the problem with most people, is they want the time to be 3 years, but the time it takes is 30 years.
Yeah. There's also something that goes to that, to teaching young people, and just right now people who want to be entrepreneurs and get to that level. Also, there's not one secret sauce, right? Yeah, there are some people who get it quicker or higher, right? They can create wealth better, but their sacrifice that they're sacrificing, maybe it's not something you want.
What are they sacrificing?
Think about it. They're sacrificing family.
Yep.
Eating out sometimes in good places, fun,
Yeah.
vacations. I was talking to my siblings not so long ago. Like, our mother never took us on a vacation when we were young. She was out all the single time, and maybe now I have a conversation with her. She's like, I still struggle with that. And, she's 60 something,
Yep.
So it's like, and for me, I did the same thing in the beginning for many years, over a decade, maybe till not so long ago, where tax season, it was like, peace, guys. It really felt to my family like I was going to go away on the jail
Yep.
for 3 months.
You know what's interesting is that it's super socially acceptable for men to do that, but not for women.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's socially acceptable for men to go like off the wall into their career, but not women.
That's crazy.
And then we wonder why there's pay gaps and wealth gaps between men and women. It's like, well, what people don't see is there's pay gaps and wealth gaps between men and men. And those gaps are between the men who want stable work-life balance, who want to spend time with their children, and the men who are blinders on, and this is a very few percentage of men now, but these are the men that own the majority of the wealth. Blinders on, working 70, 80 hours a week, 10, 20 years straight, missed everything under the sun. Forget about soccer games and whatnot. They missed everything, but they got it. And, I think everyone needs to make a conscious decision. The problem is you can't make a conscious decision until you have the right education.
Yes.
And a lot of us are missing the right education.
Literacy is where it's at. Understanding that, and then understanding, then you get to make a choice for real.
Yeah.
Because you could be an entrepreneur that doesn't have to have, all of these things that people think they want, and you get to sacrifice what you really want. Because there's a lot of people living comfortably here, with their own businesses, doing their own thing, and having, assets of a couple $1 million, their nice house, 3-bedroom house. They don't have to go for that, that person that has everything, or, the CEO. Try to be that person. It's like, All right, there's a lot of sacrifices that come with that. Warren Buffett, right? Didn't he say he sacrificed so much family time to build a thing that he's about to give it out to donation?
Yep. But that's
true.
That's his truth. That's his reality. Will he have regrets? Only he will know. Will we have regrets? Only we will know. But I think he lived more true than most people. And like the most sophisticated investors and business owners out there, he realized in his early days, like childhood, that this thing of economics was a game. And so he learned the game inside and out better than anybody. And I don't think there's going to be anybody in history that ever does what he did. Because what he did was spend day in and day out, 365 days a year, for like 40, 50 decades, reading between 500 and 1,000 pages of 10K reports, right? These are legally binding documents with financial statements and disclosures and appendix that if you tried to read 5 pages right now, you'd fall asleep. And he spent 12 hours a day for decades reading through these reports, looking for the things that everybody else missed. That's how he did it. Like if anybody wants to know how he did it, that's how he did it.
That's commitment.
Most people would jump off of the roof before they did something like that.
Yeah.
So when we said secret sauce, if you want that Warren Buffett, model, you got it.
Warren Buffett's secret sauce, super easy. A father who was a broker, who was a very dedicated and very smart individual, a loving mother, started there. Absolutely. Inventiveness when he was a kid, and parents that allowed him to, sold Coca-Colas at school. He was just always hustling, had a newspaper route, found a great mentor in college or post-grad, Ben Graham, who taught him value investing. At the time he thought he knew investing, and he knew what he used to call how to buy $1 for a quarter. So he knew how to find those companies that were selling at a quarter that people thought were shit companies, but if you looked at their balance sheet, if you sold all their assets, it was actually worth $1. So he'd buy those cheap, sell them off. So that's how he was kind of making his moves early in the days. The problem is you can only do that so many times. There's only so many opportunities out there. And then Ben Graham taught him a different way to do it. And then he went 40 years in on building a philosophy with some of the smartest people in the world and reading thousands of pages per week. That was it. That was the secret sauce. Before we go back to the JBS story, I just want to say one more thing that I learned. And I learned this from learning about people like Warren Buffett, reading a lot of books, spending time with a lot of people. Because I've been doing this for 10 years, first as an advisor, now as an accountant, I've met so many different kind of people, rich and poor.
Yep.
But I realized that rich people think that poor people are lazy, and poor people think that rich people are greedy, and they're both absolutely wrong. They're so wrong about each other. It's a shame. And the sooner those individuals, these ideologies get connected, because these are false ideologies, I think the sooner we'll start working towards a plan around how to fix some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But back to JBS. So we'll hit the fast forward button now. So we did some good things. We fixed our pricing. We hired some people. We invested in our business infrastructure, rent and occupancy infrastructure, software infrastructure, sales infrastructure, and we continue to grow. And the growth, we'll show it on a chart, was reasonable until 2019. We engaged on a strategic growth plan. We met JC Morales of Surfside Capital through the BEI, the Boston Equity Initiative, both phenomenal organizations. They helped us get focused. I came on full time in 2020. Mike came on in 2020. Matt came on in 2020. So we hired some really good talent. For the first time ever, we hired good talent that were not all totally family, and that were technical accountants and technical experts.
Yep.
If I may call myself that. And we went on a rampage for 3 years. We grew the company like 300%. It was awesome. Then we got into some trouble because we started misaligning with some partners on vision and values. And Alex got us out of that trouble by separating us from those partners. And in July of last year, 2023, Alex, after many bouts of frustration, allowed me to kind of take over. And I've been building a new direction in this company ever since. I think a direction that's more closely tied to our vision, mission, and values, though those are changing a bit. Actually, we'll have this conversation now. Screw it, publicly. I've been looking at our vision, mission, and values, and I'd like to change some things. And when I think about values, I'd like to change the family value.
Yeah.
Have you heard this?
I haven't heard it from you personally, but from anybody, but I've kind of felt that we're going
Why
there.
do you think?
I think because the family value got us to where we're at, it's not going to get us to where we're going.
Why?
Because this is not a family. This is not a house. This is not Ayana, Bryson, Carter.
I've been struggling with this one because it feels like a family to me.
It does.
But we need to be very careful about this. I don't like being dishonest with people. And in a family, honesty holds supreme. And in a family, you don't get fired.
Yeah.
And in a family, you don't get put on a performance improvement plan when your performance is not doing well.
Which we should.
Maybe you stop talking to people, but you don't put them on pips. You don't play with their money.
Yeah.
In a family, you don't ask someone to put in PTO. And I want to be very clear with people that while we'll have the best traits that I think a family has, which the one I'm looking to replace that one with, I haven't decided the exact terminology yet, is growth. Because we are invested in your personal growth.
Correct.
Sometimes more than you are.
Yeah.
And that will never change. Seeing people do better for themselves, personally, professionally, and financially, is a core value of ours.
And that just seems more real when it comes to wording. When I think about a lot about family and what it is, and it's funny you say that about the growth, because that's what I see, right? When Toby came in here, when we said I wanted to see him grow, my family, I want to see them grow. So it was about that. So that makes a lot more sense and clarity. It's just more clear.
And in a family, growth, unfortunately, is not the underlying value. I think happiness is. I think we want to see our families happy, but we want to see our staff grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
While those two things are sometimes happening at the same time, they're not always happening at the same time. Sometimes the way that someone's going to be happiest is to exit this company.
Yeah.
That's not what's in the company's best interest sometimes, but it's what's in the person's best interest. Now, I want to continue to support that because I want to see them grow. Yeah. And so there's situations where you can be happy and growing. There are situations where you can be happy and not growing, though those are fewer. There are definitely situations where you are growing and unhappy, especially while you're going through it. It might not feel like you're happy. After the fact, you'll be happy you did it, just like the gym.
Right.
Right? But during it, sometimes there's those bouts of not necessarily unhappiness, but uncomfort.
Yeah. I think culture-wise, it's who we are. As I'll say us three, we're always going to drive from a place of family or belonging, or I want to be able to coexist in a space where I want to be here every day.
Yeah.
So I think that doesn't go away. The feeling doesn't go away.
Yep.
The words on the wall on documents, it gives it more of direction as to where we're going, where we're at right now. I think it's going to feel more like us if we change that. The wording or whatever, we'll figure that out. But I think I agree. I don't think that changes anything. I don't think we're living that on a day-to-day professionally.
For some people, it's going to shock their world, I think. And for other people in the firm, it's going to feel like a weight off their chest. Because there are people in the firm who are not family, who look at that value and they see a little bit of, while they're not thinking about this consciously, I can see it, they're thinking a little bit of like classism. Like, some people are family and we are not.
Yeah.
And we need to do away with that.
I agree.
Before we grow.
I agree.
Because we're all on the same team. One team, one dream. Honestly, I prefer to change it to one team, one dream. Because we are a team and we do have a uniform dream.
It's perfect timing too, especially with the mentorship programs you've been running.
I thought you were going to say Christmas.
Christmas coming up. But yeah, it feels right and good because we, for the first time ever, I do feel that every single person, all 26, it's 26?
Yep.
All 26 people in JBS is focused on their personal growth.
Yep.
And that's finally
professional.
Yep. Personal and professionally. And that's feeling more important than the family aspect of having that, and to Rob's point, there's some people who will be shocked, but those people how I feel would be shocked, I feel are a little bit more now, not as much because they kind of understanding the growth, but I do definitely know there's going to be people who will be like, good.
Yeah,
because this is what I needed.
These are culture shocks.
Yeah.
But culture shocks are necessary, especially at breakpoints. We're at that point now where we're at about $2.5-3 million in revenue. 2 and 3 is usually that break point for me with businesses, where it's like, if you're going to go to 5, you need to start doing things very differently than the way you're doing them now. Because it's nearly impossible to just double all of your activities. Like if we sit here and build a plan around how we double the amount of tax returns that we do, how we double the amount of accounting clients that we have, the payroll clients that we have, we're looking at like a 10 to 15 year roadmap. If we start thinking outside the box, I think we can get to 5 million in 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Maybe even faster.
Also, we need to understand that when we decided to have those 3 different statements or what have you, we needed an identity. We needed to put pen to paper as to who we were and who we felt we were at that time in 2019.
Yes.
We're not those,
Yeah.
or we're not that firm
We've
anymore.
grown. We're not those people anymore.
Yeah.
I told you guys this when we first built the plan in 2019. We said we're going to take this company to $10 million in sales. I have no idea why we said that. But that's what we said.
Nice number.
It's a nice round number. One reason that it stuck to me, why I was interested in that, 0.4% of businesses get there.
Yeah.
0.4%. So I thought, I want to do some shit that only 0.4%, that 99.6% of people can't do. That's just my personality. But I'm glad we got over that, and now we're building real goals, and I'm excited to build what the real number is. We haven't done that yet. I know we want to go to 5. I know we want to keep margins good, because margins were not too good over the last few years. But I also know we're fair people, so when we say keep margins good, it means spread the wealth. We're not sitting here saying each of us needs to make $500,000 as soon as possible. I know that if we're ever making $500,000, any of us, it's because a lot of people are making a lot of money. Yeah. Bezos is on another planet now, but it's the same mentality. His mentality was always like, I'm going to own 10% of this thing, and I hope that the 90% gets super wealthy, because then I will get wealthy. And if they fail, that means I failed. So now we have accountability. So I'm excited about where we are. I'm excited about where we're going. I'm excited about our doubling down of accounting products. The product that fits the mission best for me of empowering individuals and small businesses to live their best financial lives and to stir up economic development in our communities is our accounting product.
Yeah.
Because by helping small businesses grow, we help them reach new levels of employment, so now people have jobs. We're also influencing them, whether we know it or not, with our philosophy, which means they want to pay their people well, and they want their people to have good work-life balance. It means more wealth staying now in hands that we know. Because, Lawrence, Methuen, Lowell, I just had a presentation last week about this. They have great economies, billions of dollars in GDP flowing through these. I can't believe Lowell has 1.1 billion in a medical and social workspace. And it's like, where is that money? And most of it, after going through the trickle-down effect of trickle-down economics, so, it goes to employees, and it goes to rent, and it goes to insurance companies, all that jazz. A big pot is going to major holding companies, large, nursing homes, rehab centers, hospitals, a lot of which are private, and a lot of which are held not in people's 401ks, but in privately held wealth plans with a few owners. So I'd like to just see that diversify a little bit more. And the best way to do it is to have the people who live here own here.
Yeah. That is really the way we can empower the community.
Yep, I think so. And I think that if we just drive the needle a little bit, it might be enough momentum to ask other people to try it.
Yeah. It's,
I personally feel my bad.
Okay.
I feel like, although it's a beautiful statement, I agree that now we can live it a little bit more. I didn't see when you said it first, because I was still kind of in the old guard of JBS, where I was like, well, yeah, I feel like that's a disrespect to what I do, because I feel like I'm empowering my people by giving them some tidbits, but that's not the point, right? It's like, now we're thinking generational. Now we're thinking changing communities, not just one person, not one individual, not just myself.
And, I don't mean to take away from the tax product, because the tax product delivers a ton of our mission. It just doesn't do it as much, I think.
For sure.
But honestly, I think if we wanted to, and we can make this decision today, it could. Like, if we actually sat down, so what are the ways that we can drive this change? One that you've been working on a lot, Alex, is I'm getting everybody investing in their 401k.
Right.
If we made that more of an effort to tell our team and train our salespeople, hey, I don't want you to sit down in front of anybody without asking about the 401k and telling them they should enroll to 3% at least, and here's why, then we're living the mission.
Yeah.
For sure. Right?
Yeah.
And we could do this everywhere. We don't have to do this in one place. I think we should try our best to do it absolutely everywhere. And I think if we do that, we get to 5 million way faster than if we think about doubling our tax returns and doubling our accounting product. What people don't realize is what money is. I don't think people have the right definition of what money is. And it's really just an exchange of value.
Yep.
And so if you just try to become more valuable to people, you don't even have to wonder where it's coming, because it's coming. And if you just focus on the money, you're not going to get it, because you're focused on a transaction. You're focused on a piece of paper or a piece of plastic. And that's not what money is. Money is a form of communication. It's the way that it's the universal language. And we only talk, we only use it when there is an exchange of value. And so if we just focus more on communicating effectively and providing value and expecting some in return relative to how much we've provided, we'll all become wealthier, not just financially.
Yeah. I mean, I wish people would pay attention a lot to, the reels when these successful people say, just work on yourself and then your value and the money will come.
Yeah.
The same way that they pay attention to, you could be Bessel, you could be this person, Warren Buffett.
You could buy a jet.
Or even worse, the people who sit there on a reel and will show you $20,000 in single bills. Like, hey, you want to learn how to do this?
Yeah.
It's like, stop looking for shortcuts.
Yeah.
You don't get anything good from shortcuts.
And sometimes even those that do the attention grabbing things, the clickbait stuff, they have those videos where they're like the grind, the hustle, then the money. But that's where you get the clicks from.
Yeah.
But you're not paying attention to the other ones, right? You're gonna click on the ones that have more views and more of the stuff you want to make money fast. That's just faster, easier. That's what especially nowadays, that's what people
I think that's going to change too.
Yeah?
Yeah, because we're in easy times right now. And when we're in easy times, everybody wants an easy grab. I think when we go to hard times, people readjust. It's a rebalancing.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that the community, like you were saying, we have to teach. We have to teach this literacy, that how money works, especially to business owners, because you said they're managing so much more than a person that doesn't have a business.
Yep.
And it has to come from that mentality of deliver more value to the community, learn more. I try to teach this to my daughter now. Focus on learning right now. I told her this morning, I said, school doesn't teach you enough. So you need to, and nobody's going to put you in front of people. So you got to find out who you can be, what YouTube channels you can watch, so you can get this thing that's more important than money, and it's knowledge.
Yep. Warren Buffett says, the more you learn, the more you earn. And he was reading 500 to 1,000 pages a day.
You should know, right? You put it in practice. And then then you have to do practical, because you have the theory, you got the practical, you got to marry those two things and kind of and give it time and do what you have to do.
There's two schools of people out there. It's the people who sit there and think all day and watch videos and overanalyze and read books and don't do anything. And they need to just stop thinking and start doing. And then there are people out there who are just always hustling, they're always on something new, they're always active, they're always out in the streets. And those people need to slow down, take a few days off, start to educate themselves on what the actual opportunities are, which ones are better suited, which ones are more productive to society, because that short money works, but it doesn't work long term. So they need to sit there and think more. And, you know, we kind of have to find, I'm a thinker naturally, so I have to trick myself to doing things. You know, when I first started learning about all this and started reading about money and economics and, you know, back in the 70s, how we got off the gold standard, how we went to fiat currency, how now it's truly all faith, how then at the same time-ish, we got away from stakeholders and started maximizing shareholder profits. Dude, I went down a really dark rabbit hole of like, oh, the game's rigged.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember it too.
Yeah, this game that I'm trying to play and win and teach people how to win, this shit's rigged. We can't win this shit.
You hated money at that time.
Yeah, yep, I did. And I still kind of hate the former definition of money that I had. But I just learned, I matured, you know, and got away from the existentialism and the nihilism that I think a lot of us fall into between 18 and 25. You know, I turned 31 is really what happened. And I met more people and I read better books. And now I just realized that it just takes framework change. You know, it takes what we call like a paradigm shift. You have to have this opinion of how you see something, and you need something to come in and whack your opinion and show you that there's an entirely new way of looking at things. That's a paradigm shift. And it took a couple of those for me to realize, all right, I can't sit here and think that life sucks. I got to do something about it.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah, those bars.
You know, yeah. I used to, I wouldn't even be able to get in a car without playing music, loud music. So forget music. My thing had to be boom, boom, boom all the time, 7 a.m. I remember friends would be like, damn, you really do this all the single time you get in a car? And they was like, yeah. And now I'm at the point where I don't listen to music unless I'm in a music environment. And me alone in a car, it's not a music environment. So, you know, I'll listen to podcasts. I'm excited about these YouTube episodes that are about to come out.
And Spotify. And
Spotify.
Everywhere else.
All major streaming platforms.
Yeah, because honestly, even things that I hear when I hear you guys talk and even with a lot of people that hearing it over and over and over again is the same thing as hearing the music over and over and over again. You hear a song over and over and over again, guess what happens? That influence, that sticks. You feel it. So when you get to hear, you know, these conversations that have never been had, I never had these conversations, even as a businessman, a successful businessman, never really had, to hear them over and over and over again, I can see the change that you don't know it's happening, but it is, you get influenced.
Yep.
And kudos to the team too, because a lot of the time, like a lot of clients for a couple of years now have been saying like, you need to do this. People need to hear these things, but the things that they were talking about were tax tips and quick grabs, those things. Like this thing you just taught me, it's like a lot of people are doing that. Like what we need to teach is something different, right? So Rob, the rest of the YouTube team, us doing the internal podcast kind of, you know, set this up as well, I think. There's a different conversation that needs to be had that most folks on IG or YouTube aren't having, and those are the real conversations that people should be tuning into, and not the attention grabbing ones.
Yeah, and kudos to you because I didn't want to do this, Toby. You know me. I was happy to continue to this internal podcast for the next 10 years.
And there would have been impact.
Yeah, there would have been
from the 26 that we're here and growing, you know. But
yep. You know, I just have to think about privacy, but I'm getting over that thing. And honestly, I told this to a couple of people who I was discussing this about. Like, I was trying to shut this down mentally the whole time we were planning it. And the main reason that I decided to go all in is because I see what this project was doing to Toby, to Camilo, and to Alexandra. I saw like the light in their eyes. I saw an energy that I've never seen before from all three of them, people I've been working with for years. And it was just like, oh man, I can't shut that light off.
yeah,
They held you accountable.
Yeah, they held me accountable. And they inspired me to get uncomfortable. That's more.
I hear that. I appreciate that. And again, that's why I moved in a way that was different than years past, because as we went through our disc analysis, I'm not the guy that sits down, analyzes, and goes off the data. And this forced me, because the same way that you were inspired from our side,
Yep.
I said, well, I can't just buy $20,000 worth of stuff. I need to put some work into this
Yeah, and then
do the right
he
thing.
finagled the financials because I got it so piecemeal. He waited for the episode to air, the first one, to send me the last invoice. And I was like, wait, we talked about this?
I said, no. Well, what happened was that we were in the casino, and sometimes I have this little thing where I say, if Rob drinks a little bit, sometimes he gets a little bit happy. And I said, yo, this podcast thing, you know,
always
these cameras kind of suck. You know, he's like, just buy whatever you need to buy. I said, say less.
Yeah, this is amazing.
I make bad decisions.
That's what it was. Yeah.
We get to show the world, you know, some kids who were born in New York, you know, the Bronx, Manhattan, grew up to be mature men, Dominican men. Who we come from a culture that we come from a culture where really we're put on a pedestal. Like we're this, and you know, females do get
Us guys,
yeah, us guys, and we matured enough to say no, we're not this person. And I think right now JBS has the most females it's ever had in higher positions than ever. And we have wives that we respect, that's shown us a lot. We have daughters now, you know what I mean? You guys have daughters, I haven't had a daughter, but yeah, it's something that is nice to show to the world. Look, this is not a story. Your story wasn't written.
Yeah.
Your story wasn't written. You write your own story, and we're family members. And there's this thing that says family members shouldn't be in business together because they're always going to clash head. There's too much emotion, and I feel like we help other partners who are not family members that go through way worse stuff than we would go through.
Yep.
You know, so this is something to show.
I think you're pointing out a very clear message that is essentially what I've been working on personally since I got out of college, which is the values that you carry today, the values that you've been taught by the people around you, do not have to be your permanent values. You can keep the ones you like, you can discard the ones you don't, and you can build new ones. And people feel trapped by culture, by race, by religion, that they're forced to carry these values, and that's just not the case.
Yeah.
And now I gotta go.
That's a perfect way to end it. Listen to the end, guys.
Later.